From Gladstone to Gardner, you're listening to Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio.
I think that President Trump has mostly great economic policies, but this one over the weekend and the president's doubled down on it. I just can't figure out for the life of me. The president launched this on Friday when he said that he's no longer going to allow the American public to be ripped off by credit card companies that are charging interest rates of 20 to 30% and even more. He says effective January 20th, this month, as president, I'm calling for a one-year cap on credit card interest rates of 10%. Let's get the perspective of Jackson Hataway, Missouri Banker Association president. He's joining us on KCMO Talk Radio. Jackson, great to have you on the show. We appreciate your time back on KCMO. All right, you saw this from the president. He doubled down on it last night on Air Force One. What does this mean to the average Missourian and Kansan who's seeing this headline, who's like, oh, that sounds good. I'd like my credit card rate to come down. Thank you, President Trump. What's the other side of this?
Good morning, Pete. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for letting us kind of talk about this issue, because I think it starts from a place of, honestly, good intent on the part of the administration, but it ends in a place where the policy will absolutely negatively impact all of your listeners.
Now, why is that?
We know that price controls, mandates like this where you cap credit rates and arbitrarily set some number that is lower than the market price, what it does is not reduce the cost of credit for those people. It removes credit for those people. You know, any credit product is really simple at its core. There are rates and pricing set that allow for that issuer, whoever is supplying credit, whether it's a credit card, a commercial loan, a mortgage, to manage the risk for the borrower that's sitting across the table trying to get whatever it is they need. As long as the issuer can be sure that they are pricing things appropriately to cover the chance that someone may not be able to pay for whatever it is that they're using that credit line for, then they can secure the credit. They can be sure that they're going to be covered should something happen. And that's why rates have to flex. They have to support both the borrower and the entity that's putting money on the table to help that borrower out. If we can't manage risk that way, if we can't say this credit product fits the need of this population and its rate is set to account for the risk, then it's not a case of giving credit at a lower rate. The only possible thing you can do is remove those credit products from the table. And unfortunately, that means your lower income households will feel the pain first. They will be the ones that see credit access in the form of credit cards disappear, and they'll have to go other places like loan sharks or non-insured financial institutions and entities that are unregulated, whose APRs are in the hundreds of percents, not 20%, not 30%, but 100, 200, 300% on average.
So instead of maybe a 20% credit card rate from one of the major credit card companies, they're going down the street to, Bob's Payday Loans or whatever, and they're double, tripling, or quadrupling that number, which obviously is not going to work out for the people that this policy is theoretically intended to help.
That is absolutely correct. And in fact, we did some work, about a year ago on a bill proposed by Senator Sanders and Senator Hawley out of Vermont and Missouri, respectively, that essentially capped credit card rates at 10%. That was the proposal. And what we found in Missouri is that 80 to 88% of Missourians who have credit cards would lose access to their credit card. Roughly 3 million people would simply no longer have credit cards. And certainly if your credit score is under 750, you would see credit disappear because the bank, the card issuer cannot protect their interest in offering credit. And so they'll remove the product from the table, which will affect the population that needs that credit card. They will go down to Bob's Payday Loans and get a hyper high interest rate in order to have access to cash. At the same time, those people with credit cards will see their rewards programs vanish. Just like debit card rewards vanished years ago when bad policy was put in place. In this case, bad policy in the form of rate caps, price controls, will make it inaffordable for any credit card issuer to offer the kinds of reward programs that your listeners love, whether that's airline points, hotel points, certain stores, cashback rewards, all those things that incentivize us towards and against certain credit cards. All those rewards programs will become completely unaffordable, and you will see them disappear. And credit cards will simply become another form of credit payment locked into the highest echelon of credit borrowers.
Jackson Hataway, Missouri Banker Association president, joining us on KCMO Talk Radio. So on the other side of state line, I know you're in Missouri, but Roger Marshall on the Kansas side, U.S. Senator, said that he will be leading the legislation to lower costs for American families to rein in greedy credit card companies who have been ripping off hardworking Americans for far too long. It sounds compelling. People are going to say, screw them. But you're saying it's not that simple. What is your response to Senator Marshall, who says he wants to lead this legislation on the Senate floor?
I think Senator Marshall is misguided in his belief that this will help his constituency, just like Senator Hawley and Senator Sanders believed their proposal a year ago would help those constituencies. On their face, these seem like proposals that you would enjoy. A 10% cap means you won't pay above that. But what they seem to ignore is the fact that once you cap anything, the cost of any good or service or any credit product, you simply no longer have that credit product for those borrowers who need it most. People who need access to credit cards need to be able to bring in lines of money, funds to pay for basic goods and services. If I can't make the math work to manage the risk of a certain credit profile borrower, so 750 and below in the case of Missouri, I'm sure the same would be true of Kansas if we did the study there. Those lower to moderate income people who use their credit cards to make purchases at the grocery store, at the gas station, to pay for daycare, they won't have those means available to them. So the question will be either where do they go get those monies, or where do they sacrifice the basic goods and services they need because they don't have a credit card to pay for those things? And I don't think any of our senators intend for that to be the consequence. I believe it's the unintended consequence of policy that hasn't been thoroughly vetted that would lead to that outcome.
All right. Jackson Hataway, Missouri Bankers Association president on KCMO. Jackson, I got 30 seconds, but real quick on this. The president, I don't even know how unilaterally he can do it. Is it your understanding this would have to be something legislative anyway?
Our understanding has always been that action on this front would take place through the traditional congressional paths, Senate, House, et cetera. Obviously, the president has made some statements about a potential action on this front, and we're just waiting to see what that could look like. We do believe, however, the standard path would be legislative first.
All right. Jackson, thank you so much for being here on KCMO.
Thank you very much, Pete. Have a great day.
You bet.